Hi guys, I'm lucky. I got two other Googlers with me on stage, so I definitely beat everybody else's presentation. Um, I wanted to say that I wrecked my brains about presenting, and these guys can tell you because every single time I thought about what am I going to talk about, what's going to give you value, because I want you guys to walk out with something that will help you. It's helped me. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm going to be a little bit selfish, but I think it's important for you to know my story, like what I do at Google and where I am. So it's the aim is it's not really me presenting to you, it's me talking to you and you guys asking questions. I really want to give you the opportunity to engage with us because I think you probably don't have an opportunity to talk to the likes of at least these two guys as well, who by far have much more experience and are just so much more cooler than I am. Because I think they've got a lot of value to add and hope we want you to walk away with what's important to you. So Brett gave me this amazing kind of intro. But the honesty is that I started about a day before Brett at the Google office about 3 years ago. So I'm Google's #1 employee in South Africa, just by the way, we're getting that out.
Whatever. Same day.
Same day. And it's this conversation we have. So you can see we've got a lot of fun, we have great relationships, and that's key. That's what I want to talk to you guys about. So back to me, I looked after, when I started, I looked after everything. I was one of 2 salespeople in the office back then when we joined. The other guys have left, not out of Google, but to other countries with Google, which is quite kind of nice. Give you an indication of the opportunity that Google brings. I myself started on the finance side, which was not fun. I didn't enjoy it. It was interesting, but at that point in time, they were our biggest clients, and they were quite important for Google's business. So since then, I've moved. In the last year, we went from about 4 people to how many? 28. So massive growth in the South African office, and I've been able to lead a team which looks after tech, auto, retail, classifieds, local, entertainment, and travel. So it's quite a large portfolio. Very tough portfolio because Jonathan Ratcliffe earlier mentioned that different segments or different verticals in South Africa are at different places. The set of clients I have are still kind of coming into the play onto digital. So it's tough, right? It's really tough because I have to convince them why digital works. And there was another question in the audience where guys were asking, so what are you doing? What are you doing to spur on the market? And how are you getting more people to think digital? And the discussion that I've had is, well, we need to so I speak to the operators because they're my clients, and I say, well, together we can get more people online, get more people connected onto Google and to use Google. So that's growing the landscape, growing the industry. But more importantly, also pitching, also talking about awesome ideas. And it's not necessarily just getting them to buy in at first, right? Because it's fail, 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 and then succeed. And it's tough. So, yeah, you get to see kind of who my clients were. So this is when I started. Some guys existed. For instance, ATA didn't exist. Companies like obviously MTN, Nokia, Samsung were there. Takealot, purely online. Kalahari, purely online. And it was tough because you had some guys that understood the internet and you had some guys that had no idea. Pick and Pay, as an example. Pick and Pay were nowhere in 2010. And it's been a long and painful means of convincing them that actually, people do shop online and they do like to get their foods delivered and there is a market for it and you need to be addressing that market. So challenges, and it's hard. But, I think that's why I excel and why I do so well, because I'm able to convince them and I'm able to talk about my experiences and where I've come from. And just to give you an idea, I've been in the tech industry for, these guys laugh at me because they think like I started working when I was 10, but probably, no. For about 15 years. I started straight out of school and I studied and worked at the same time. So I've got huge tech experience. I worked for MTN, I worked for Sony, I worked for Nokia, I worked for Vodacom, I worked overseas. And I've learned a lot. I've learned about selling in different markets, which is unique, which is crazy. I've sold in Germany, which is amazing. If anybody can sell in Germany, I reckon you're good. And it's a tough environment, but I'm going to tell you a personal story. I'm going to tell you how I do it. It may not necessarily be the right way. And I honestly want to just share my experiences, right? I mean, it's not your way, but hopefully you learn from what I'm saying. And that's kind of what I want you to walk out with. And I think that's important. And these guys, by the way, are going to help me because I'm going to interview them. You didn't know that, right?
He's just put us on stage, by the way. We have no idea what's going on.
So I thought it would be cool because then at least they can also tell you about their experiences and about relationships, because then you've got at least 3 Googlers that have given you something worthwhile. And if you don't listen to me, maybe you'll listen to them. Okay. So you can hardly see this, but this is a slide that comes out of Ad Focus. Any of you know about Ad Focus? Yeah, some of you? Okay. This just talks about what these brands spend on a yearly basis in South Africa. Okay. So if you look at the likes of Unilever, by the way, it's hundreds of millions of rands, not 1,200 rand. It's about 1.2 billion. That's what Unilever spent. And you can imagine, it's a lot of money. So what are our challenges, or my challenge? My challenge is, how do I go in and convince them that digital is important? Digital is a part of the market that they need to look into. And it's always interesting because these are discussions that sometimes people are not convinced. Sometimes you go knocking on a door several times and it's nice for a relationship, but you actually walk away with nothing. And it's only, maybe 6 months, sometimes maybe a week, sometimes maybe longer, that you actually get a little bit of here we go, let's trial this, let's see how this does. And that's when you really need to grab it. You need to take the bulls by the horns and make it work for you. And, our previous speaker spoke about the honesty, and I really liked it because a lot of what he says is stuff that I do. And it's really not about too much BS. It's not too much about the CEO talk, which, yeah, we can do that. Can we do that? No. But you know what I mean, right? It's like selling stuff that you can't achieve, and that hurts you, and that hurts the relationship. So, why is relationships important, and why do you think relationships are important? For me, it's kind of my big belief is that relationships are key because not only do they help you in existing business, they help you in future business. And I've been in the tech industry for, like I said, for many years. And the one thing I found out, especially about South Africa, is that your, marketing director at Vodacom will tomorrow be the marketing director at Cell C. It's a very, very weird organization, right? Account managers at Sony will be the account manager at Samsung. And this is how it works, and it works in different industries as well. But it's crazy in tech. So having a relationship with somebody at one organization, which could harm you or could affect you, it's sometimes better to just rather walk away, knowing that you tried your best, you didn't get the business, because you know what, that person's going to be an MD at another company, and if he remembers, oh yeah, you're the guy that came and pitched a lot of bullshit and nothing worked, you're screwed, right? So sometimes it's nice to try and to pitch, and if it doesn't work, walk away knowing you tried, walk away knowing that you gave it your best. Maybe they're not ready for it. Maybe take that relationship and park it and bring it back some other time. Maybe you can go around it. And there's reasons. So your relationships, and I put your A, B, and C because it's really cool. Your relationships are key. And you never know, right? Because A might know B. You might have done something fantastic whilst talking to a person at another organization. It's a small industry, as you guys know. And then when I said, well, geez, you should have done it. We did it. Talking from experience, we did something amazing with Cell C. We put a case study on YouTube. None of the other operators were kind of prepared to do it. We got massive traction. Cell C went to town with promoting it, case studied it. They were happy. And then we presented it to the other operators. And they were like, oh man, why didn't we do this? And we're like, we did approach you, but you weren't ready. And guess what? We rolled it out. So sometimes that can happen. Sometimes that can help you, and sometimes that can absolutely be the best thing, to walk away from a deal knowing that you could probably not get it, but you know what? Things happen in funny ways. But remember something else, right? You, these guys, you're a brand. Okay? Do you know where the word brand comes from? No? Anybody? Cool, because now I can really lie to you and get away with it. So a brand or branding comes from the old days when guys used to brand cattle, right? What separates mine from yours? Okay, so you had a brand on a cattle, and that would be your brand, your cattle, your property. What's my brand worth? I'd like to think a hell of a lot, because Craig's laughing. Because you go out and you basically present yourself. Because if I'm comfortable knowing you, I will buy from you, right? Craig, how many samosas do you buy from my dad's restaurant?
I've lost count, buddy. I've lost count. I'm a frequent flyer or frequent eater at the restaurant.
Good brand, right? But the honesty of it is that you present the product you're selling, and if people like you, they will like your brand, or they most likely will buy from you. Okay, if they don't like you, good luck, because, and it's part of my discussion as well, then it's most likely you stepping out of the limelight and letting somebody go in, because you might have unknowingly compromised the situation, but sometimes, you know what, you got to be man enough, woman enough, to step back and say, somebody else take the lead, because I've actually burnt the bridge. And it's tough to know when to do that, because, you know, sales guys are like closers, and we like to showboat, and yeah, I did a 10 million rand deal, and I sold this and I sold that. But the reality of the situation is it doesn't always work, and sometimes you can do damage by trying to do too much, and it's good to get somebody else going in. So, again, I mean, and I've written here, you can kind of see it, it's an impression, right? It's how you or how I impress you. So if I walk, or you walk out of here going, geez, that was an amazing, amazing, amazing talk, right? I would have impressed you, great, and I think that's a positive impression. But if you walked out of here saying, that guy spoke so much crap, negative impression. By the way, I think it's important that I mention about this thing. You guys have to rate me at the end, okay? I forgot about that.
I'm going to be
Sorry.
selling to them.
I forgot about it.
It's not just rating Avi.
Yeah.
It's rating all three of us. So please don't fill it in right now. Wait till we speak at least.
Yeah.
Give us a chance.
So by the way, on that note, you have to rate. Yeah. So it's all part of the brand, and it's quite important, because people will look at you and people will think, geez, that guy was great. That guy was really awesome. Or you know what? He was honest to say he doesn't know. He was honest to say, let me get back to you. And remember, I don't know, like, how many sales guys do we have here? Sales guys, okay. So, back in the day, how did you engage with a would-be customer, client? And I'm talking probably before the internets and the webs and stuff, phone, right? Cold calling and stuff like that, right? The horrible stuff. Yeah, you know, it was stalking. At this stage, Brett's not part of our group. But the honesty is, yes, we would call, we would sometimes, you know, get introduced to one another through friends, and if that friend had a positive, just like, yeah, this is a good oak because he's a good oak, and cool, that's how we did it. Nowadays, it's bad, because now you can stalk. And it's true, right? I mean, I don't know how many of you guys do this, and I do this all the time. I don't stalk. I research. So I go into Google, and I would look up the MD of Pick n Pay, as an example, and I'd find out as much information about that person as possible. Because, you know, the web is available, people post, update, tweet, talk about whatever, and it's amazing how much stuff gets captured, how much information is out there. So just by Googling, and yes, absolutely Facebook, look at what they look like and stuff, and what they tweet, and also, you know, Google Plus, you can now follow people and see what they're up to. The point I'm trying to make here is that right now, nowadays, we've got the tools that before we even call or before we even try and engage, we've got a basic understanding about that person. And what's super interesting that I find to be phenomenal, and again, the previous speaker spoke about it, was that we go in and we pitch, but we have no idea about the business, the person, what they're doing, who they are. And it's just, oh my God, I can't believe we're speaking to the tea lady. And it's happened before, right? I've gone in and I've met with like a junior assistant. And I went with Declan, the guy in the helmet who was doing the crazy thing. And afterwards, Declan said to me, oh my God, Avi, we just spent an hour and a half of our time with the junior assistant. And we were supposed to meet like the CMO of Telkom. And I was like, that's true. That's true. But we don't know what relationships she has inside the organization, right? We don't know who she is, what she does, and how many doors she can open for us. And amazingly enough, she is the person that sets up almost 90% of all my meetings now with key stakeholders in the organization, just because I spent an hour and a half of my time with her. And, you know, Declan looked at that and he thought, geez, I would never have thought about it that way. So different people can unlock different doors for you. And it's just about giving every single person a fair chance. And I think that's also quite important. So I Googled myself. Who's Googled themselves? Come on. All of you. I know you have. I know you have. Brett does it all the time.
200 hits a day. Thank you.
And
me.
It's on him, yeah. And it's just a point that I did it. I was, and this is true, but it's not me, but it's true. There's another Avinesh Pillay in Fiji who's wanted for murder. And I was like, oh my God. It was crazy. So anyway, I'm not that guy.
When everyone Googles you, they're a bit nervous to meet you.
Super nervous. But I've gone and checked that I'm actually on all the listings on page 1 of Google is all true. Thereafter, nobody looks, so it doesn't matter, right? So anyway, so I've got a LinkedIn profile. And again, I'm a brand, so it's important to kind of, you know, I keep Facebook and I keep LinkedIn very separate because I personally don't think that they should meet. And the important thing, what I'm saying is that if I'm selling, I'd like people to see, okay, this guy did this, he worked for Sony, he worked for Nokia. These are kind of his main claim to fame, so to speak. And it's clean and it's good. And people can look at the brand, my brand, and say, yeah, I think I could do business with that guy. That's the kind of guy that I want to meet. And I've got some good recommendations. Thanks, Brett. And, you know, it creates my brand, right? It builds my brand. So your brand, remember that whilst you Googling and whilst you're looking at your clients, they're doing the same thing about you, right? So the next time you get drunk at the party and Facebook, and so, just think about it. It's important because your brand is very important. So I looked at myself, it looks pretty cool, and then I decided to look at these guys. Brett, over 8,000 people, super impressed.
I'm a whore.
That's why I'm super impressed. And then Craig as well. And it just goes to show that, again, it's their brand, right? They want people to see them in a certain way, and it looks cool and it looks professional. I would do business with you guys, by the way, just saying that. I would do business with you guys. Would you do business with this guy? He's met him. No, he hasn't. You met Bishop too. Who met him?
Winfrey's birthday.
He knows. We're all tight in the Google office. We know key people. But the important thing is that, you know, the ripple effect that somebody can have could be monumental, right? And it's important that you remember this. So you remember that junior assistant at Telkom, one day she could be the CMO. One day she could have enough following to create a rippling effect where a lot of people will say, geez, you know, I remember her. Wow, look at the kind of effect that she has. Any of you heard of the United Airlines story? Guy with a broken guitar. Pick up your hands if you have. Okay, well, not half. Okay, I'll talk about it. So, here's a no one. He was a nobody. And what happened was United Airlines broke his guitar on a flight. And after kind of weeks and months of talking to them and saying to them, listen, guys, please can you just replace the guitar? All I want is for you to replace. They took over a year to get back to him, and eventually they said, sorry, we're not paying for this. Like, that's your problem. And he was like, cool. So what does he do? As everybody else does, we go onto YouTube, and we release a song. And his song is pretty cool because it totally trashes the airline. He gets 12 million views, okay? And the PR out of that just became a nightmare for the airline. Can anybody guess how much it cost the airline? Anyone? Take a guess, somebody, please. $1 million. $180 million. Okay. And you can't read the red. That's right, folks. United's share price plunged in is all attributable to Dave Carroll. Okay. Your brand. Treat everybody with respect. Goes around, comes around. How are we doing for time? Cool. So, my point here is that the previous slide was about the Dalai Lama, and this is about Dave Carroll, and it could be about anybody else. It could be about Brett St. Clair, Craig Wing, myself, yourself. Is that we all have the potential to really say amazing things. It can be captured in an audience. It can go viral, and all of a sudden, you have a cult. All of a sudden, you're doing the Harlem Shake. Right? It can happen. Okay. First impressions last. And I think you all agree with me, right? That's important because when you walk into that room, how you shake the guy's hand or stumble or talk or what you're wearing, and you don't, I've got it in the slide, so I'll wait for it. But it's important because that impression is a lasting impression. So, again, I have done this, right? I go into a meeting and everybody thinks I know everything because I work for Google. I'm not wired into Google. I work for Google. And people think that I know everything. My family thinks I know everything, which is amazing. And they always ask me, hey, what's happening? I'm like, I don't know. Like, do you get that as well?
My wife knows everything.
Yeah.
Yes, dear.
So the thing is that I go into a meeting and guys will ask me questions and I'll be honest enough and again to say, I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. But what I will do is I will get back to you and I will make sure that we find the answer. And if it takes a couple of weeks, I will let you know weekly, like we're still finding out. Because it's important to keep in communication. It's important. Communication is so important. And we always forget it. The talking is amazing. And when we don't talk, people just don't know. I don't know what this guy is doing. I haven't heard from you. Have you heard from? No, I don't know. And it affects you, right? Because people say, no, don't get hold of this guy. He never gets back to you. And that's something that I say is, we don't know the answer. Get back to the office. You ask this question. We don't know. I'm emailing to let you know I've escalated or I'm trying to find out. Give me a week. I'll get back to you. In a week, I have an automatic reminder in my calendar that says, hey, you need to get back to this guy. I'm like, check up quickly phone. You don't have to know that, but do this. And then I find out and like, actually, we got the answer and I get back. And the guy's like, cool, thank you so much. The problem is that now, you become Google. Like, hey, speak to him. He knows everything. But it's because you're creating relationships and you want to make sure that people actually know that you're the guy to go to if things need sorting out. Never guess the answer. Have you guys ever guessed the answer? Anybody? Yes, you're lying. I know some of you have guessed the answer, right? And sometimes you get away with it. Okay, sometimes you do. But the worst is when you don't. Because when you don't, your credibility just goes.
78% of all statistics are made up on the fly.
Thank you, Brett. and my point is that, right? I mean, it's amazing how much you could hurt your brand and your credibility by just talking maybe out of turn, maybe assuming. I'm not going to let Brett tell you what assuming really means, but I think the important thing here is that if you don't know, say you don't know. It'll save you so much time in the long run. And the important thing is that I think, let me get back to you, or I think it's this, but let me double check. I think there's nothing wrong with you having an educated guest or an uneducated guest, but at the end of the day, if you come back with the correct information, it's so much better than you guessing, them researching. You're so wrong, your credibility is down the drain. Okay, I want to tell you a personal story. It's about when I interviewed at Google or was given an opportunity to go for interviews. Anybody guess how many interviews I had? 11 interviews. Anybody guess how long? 4.5 months. Okay, tough process. The worst thing is that now because the nice thing about Google is that when you get a job at Google, you also become an interviewer for future people coming in, which is fun. but one of the big things is that we have to actually hire somebody who challenges us, makes us think, and actually is maybe smarter than us. Okay, I know Brett's never hired anybody, but that's part of the rule. So you basically say, you know what, I back this person, I believe they've got this stuff, and I believe that this is somebody that knows more than me. And in everyday business, you'll find somebody in your industry that knows more than you. Have you guys experienced that before? Yeah. Anybody experienced that before? I have. I go in and I talk about something, and then all of a sudden there's somebody who just loves YouTube, all over YouTube, and they like just bring out the YouTube stuff, and I'm like, dude, that's so cool. And yes, that sounds right. You sound like, I would never challenge somebody who takes that lead, because unless I'm pretty sure that I know my stats, you can get people that actually know more than you, right? Like I said, Brett has not found anybody that knows more than him.
Wife.
Okay. Wife. So, lasting impressions, and I've got this, you can't really see the picture, it's not me, as you can see, wrong shade of color, but it's not me. The thing is that you've got to be presentable, you've got to be somebody that people can trust. You got to look the part of not only do you walk the walk, but you talk the talk. And you can be serious without a suit. This is number 9 of Google's 10 things we know to be true at Google. So if you Google this is number 9 on that list. Okay? And we were at a meeting at VW on Monday. And our country manager Luke started to present. I don't know if you guys heard the story, but Luke started to present. And he was like, so we're going to talk about the internet, the landscape, and there's X, amount of people online globe. And the marketing manager, like the head of the VW marketing, turned around and said, hold on, stop. Tell me about what it's like to work for Google. And we were like, huh? And she was like, no, seriously. I mean, first of all, you guys apparently wear weird stuff. I was the only one that went like a sailor to that meeting, right? And I was like, I dressed up, and you guys remember that, right? It was like a Monday. And she was totally blown away by the fact that, this actually happens. And we dressed up for the meeting, which was weird because we normally don't. As you can see, this is Google wear. And people don't really care about what you wear, right? It's up here. Huh? It's all there. So I put in an organogram here because I think it's very important that you guys know where I have relationships in South Africa with some of the guys, and I'll explain to you exactly where I get in and how I get in. Okay, number 1, CEOs for me, like no-nos. You guys are going, what? Decision makers? I'm like, because in my meetings with, and it's not all, most of the CEOs actually, they don't care about the marketing stuff. They've got a marketing manager or a CMO that does that. And they trust that person well enough to make sure that they decide and they do what they need to. So sometimes the CEO may not be the best person that we want to be chatting to. The personal assistants, Declan, personal assistants, be friends with the personal assistants. The PAs are my best friends. Why? Because they open doors for me. So I will send flowers, chocolates, whatever. If I know what the PA's birthday is, I look after the PA. Because I can guarantee you, and I've experienced this, when I want some face-to-face time with the CEO, because I need to, because my director from Israel is coming down and he needs to meet with the CEO of Vodacom, the PA is going to make that happen for me. Not the CMO, because the CMO is going to be like, I don't know, you need to speak to the CMO, to the PA, because that's who has the diary and is responsible for that. So PAs for me are really the most important people for me. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but I promise you it's true. So yeah, PAs. The CMOs and CFOs, because they sign off budget, right? Those are the other two guys. Sometimes you need to chat to these people because they are, at the end of the day, responsible for budget and also responsible for your traditional spend moving to digital spend. And that's super important. And I think, to be honest with you, I focus more on the budget holders, because these are guys that if you know how much money is being allocated to traditional media, you can sway the marketing manager, say, I know, and this is what's happening, and you pull out the stats that we have. This is what's happening at a global level, and this is why I think it's important for you to trial it. And if you don't try it, guess what? I'm going to leave you alone. I won't bother you again. Luckily for me, it's worked in most cases, because I make sure we deliver what we say. I don't promise stuff I can't deliver. Okay, this is my calendar for this week. You can't really see it, but yesterday I had 8 meetings. Don't worry about football at the bottom, because I coach soccer teams in the evenings, but I had 8 meetings. And for me, what the outcome was for those meetings was to introduce our Dublin team who's in country to my client, my top clients. And it wasn't with the CMOs. It wasn't with the CEOs. It was with people that are decision makers and that can really turn things around for us. It's guys that have good relationships within the organization. It's guys that, if I need a favor, I know I can depend, and I can call these guys to say, please, can you hook me up? I need to speak to the CMO. There's a big opportunity. I have something very interesting that I also use. It's called a meter. Say that fast. The meter for me represents FaceTime. It represents going into an organization, and track this, right? Do this yourself. Go in, meet up with a client for the very first time. Mark how much business you had with them, what was the output, what was the outcome, what did they mean to you, what did they do for you, and just try and engage it. And then measure, because we're all about measurement at Google. The next meeting, what happened? Did you sell anything? Did you meet? Was there still no revenue, no sales? But maybe it's revenue that doesn't need to be captured by a number. Maybe it's revenue that has to do with your brand. Maybe it's, okay, I got through the personal assistant. She likes me. Great. I'm on a good roll here. Let me go speak to the digital manager. And the digital manager likes me too. And he puts me in touch with the CMO. CMO hates me. I'm like, right. Roadblock. Go back. Go meet with the marketing manager. Try and repair or try and convince them, because they have a relationship with the CMO. And if they buy into it, then maybe they can convince or the CMO on your behalf why it's important. So again, you can range, you can gauge, and you can find out who helps you and who doesn't help you, right? Stay away from those that don't help you, or use colleagues to go in. Jeez, I'm running out of time here. Okay, important. If you're not in front of your customer, someone else is. Okay. One thing I don't like about Google is that we do a lot of reporting, and I don't feel like I am in the face of my customer, because I need to be there. That's where my relationship is, and that's where I can unlock opportunities for Google. We report everything. And when we report everything, it's about what was the outcome of the meeting? Who did we meet? What did we talk about? What was the opportunity presented? What did we pitch? What didn't we pitch? How was the feeling in the meeting? It's a lot. It's crazy, and we need to report this after every single meeting, because we track what happened and what was the outcome of all those meetings. If you guys going to a meeting, right, your outcome is what's important for you, yes? Okay. These are kind of 7 points which, for me, represent what's important for me. And it's basic stuff, but it's important to tell you what it is from my perspective. Strategy, like what's a positive outcome? And also look at the negative outcome. What is the negative outcome? Is there a negative outcome? Because a negative outcome could be no business, but that's a positive outcome, because you've met and you've got to meet and you understand where the strategy is, and maybe you can turn that around. Initial meetings, listen, learn, and act, right? Listen. I hate meetings where you're engaging and you hear people, but you're not listening to what they're saying. And you're like, You just stop them and you're like in their face and they're like, who is this clown? It's so important to listen. And when you presented the opportunity, give your feedback. You don't have to, you don't have to tell them lots, but it's about what you listened. So in my mind, your strategy was blah, 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 blah. Yes, it was. And by the way, we plan to do this. So we hear, but we don't listen, and I think that's important. And then act, and then come back and say, look, let me get back to you with a proposal, or let me get back to you with my country manager coming to meet, or our new product specialist, new product head of, what are you? Okay. Advanced meetings, what value can you bring? What value can I bring to you? What is important for you, and how can I help you achieve that? That, for me, is kind of a winning point, right? If they can see value coming in, they're going to be, I want to do business with this person. Understand overall marketing strategies. I think we know that one. Don't jump straight into pitching without understanding the strat. Okay, again, I've got all these solutions. Actually, they only want one. Be confident. Number 2, don't try to close too many deals. Pick 1, 2 at most. Close 1. Come back. Okay, let's not be greedy. Previous speaker spoke about that. Okay, let's just go with one thing. That's a win. Great. Let me do that well. Guess what, guys? I'm reporting back. We did this. This is what happened. Amazing. Can we do something else? Yes, let's try this. What's in it for you as the client? What do they want to get out of this, right? You know what's in it for me, but what's in it for you? And I'm rushing you guys because I've got 9 minutes left. Yeah.
That's wrong.
Oh, crap. Okay. The good news is they're going to help me answer this, becoming an integral part of the business and its decisions. So I've got Craig and I've got Brett, but I'm not going to go through more slides. I'm going to talk to you guys. Tell me about yourself. Quick introductions. 1 minute. Start with Craig.
Thanks, Avi. So I head up small business marketing. So very high level, I look after you guys essentially. So I look after anything that's related to small businesses and engage as part of that. I think more importantly, Avi wanted me to chat about some of the previous stuff. So before Google, immediately before that is I started a non-profit in California. So I worked in the US. We grew some stuff over there, and within about 6-7 months, I launched a program on 9 universities around the US, 2 in China. Raised $200,000, and had 3 people working for me, all about networks and relationships. Started 2 other businesses as well, so probably speaking from that perspective.
Hi everybody, Brett Sinclair. I look after all our new products across Sub-Saharan Africa, essentially YouTube, display, social, and mobile. Bit of background on me, spent 10 years in the UK working in the tech and telco space as an engineer and project manager. Came back here, set up an agency, 2 agencies for 2 to 3 years in the mobile marketing space, and ended up working for a company called AdMob. I headed up that business and found myself in the Google sphere.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Thank you very much for that brief. A quick question, right? Because I've got quite a few here, but I have to break it down. But Brett, I'll start with you. I spoke about relationships. From your perspective, what 2 relationship tips could you give to the guys in the audience here? And why would you feel they would work? I mean, what is important for them? When they walk away and when they're going to a meeting, what worked for you? And what can you give, what can you advise for them? I spoke about some stuff, but I think, let me, from your perspective.
So I think Avi touched on getting to know who you're speaking to first. As soon as you get that meeting, understand exactly who's in the meeting, what they've done in the past, and I'm a big believer in building a relationship, so I don't jump straight into the sales pitch. I spend a bit of time trying to find points of areas that I can relate to. There's always something you can relate to with somebody. It doesn't matter how different you are in culture, how different your backgrounds are. There's always going to be something, whether it's soccer, whether it's football. And as salespeople, if we can't, we need to diversify our interests a bit more. So I go after that because I want to build a bond. I want to build a bond of trust. Then the second most important thing, as well as brand, but it's part of your brand, I guess, is to make sure that people, once they trust you, that you are able to deliver. It's so easy to keep on saying yes. There's that sales methodology where you get the nodding horse going. Instead of just getting the nodding horse going, agree a couple of action points out of the meeting. You don't want to finish the meeting and go, great, I know a lot about it, and maybe I sold something or didn't. Always make sure you've got action points so that you can follow up and grow that business.
I'm not going to elaborate. I think a lot of the guys have touched on, but there's two things, and I think this is probably the biggest thing I've learned at Google, is for you guys, and Avi touched on this about brand, personal brand. And remember, your personal brand is not just you, who you are, but what you represent and how your company integrates into that, right? So whoever you are, make sure it comes through. Some of you guys may believe, look, I'm going to wear a suit and tie to work. If that's not you, that's not you. Then you're going to have to find some way. But more importantly, from a Google perspective, there's two things, and this is probably the simplest rule in terms of building relationships. One is know your magic. Know what's awesome about you, what's awesome about your agency, what makes you spectacular. Second thing, know your customer. Brett touched on that kind of stuff. Know what these guys do, and then your job is to connect the two. That's all your job is. What are you awesome at? What do these guys do? How can you make it awesome for them? It's that simple.
Cool. Brett, I loved what you said about your actionables and making sure you deliver. I think that's super important. I want to ask you both a question, and I don't know if we'll have time to answer both, but I know this has happened to me, but I'm not going to talk about me. I'm going to talk about you. Have you pitched and have you failed? How did you manage?
So life has got easier since I joined Google. In the days when I was building my own agency, I used to go into meetings and it'd be Brett Sinclair, who the hell are you, bugger off. And I'd go into meetings and I did struggle to marry those two. Like, what's great about me and my business that I can offer value to your business? And I probably had a win rate of 1 in 100. And, that's really poor win rate. But I was determined to learn the secret sauce that I was capable of. I read every single sales book. I tried to understand every single marketing book. And I really learned by struggling and failing. So if I look at my total win count, it's very small percentage compared to the total loss count. And I think that's also the toughest thing when you are running your own business, when you are part of a smaller business, is to take those knocks on the chin, get up and go, you know what, I've learned a lesson here, and I'm going to go ahead, take that lesson, and be even better at what I do.
Just really quickly, I think the hardest pitches where I failed were VC pitches. So this is when I started previous business, and you go and sit in front of, like, you guys see like Shark Tank and all that kind of stuff. Now take that and put it in front of a US audience, essentially. So you're pitching in front of guys that have invested hundreds of millions of dollars, and I've been some of those. And it's horrible. You get absolutely slaughtered. But the most important point to remember is, even if you pitch a business, or if you pitch an idea, or you pitch something, you're not just pitching that thing, you're pitching yourself, right? And even if your pitch falls absolutely flat, you've pitched for like 10,000 Rand business and it's 1,000 Rand, and the guy's like, listen, that's cool and all, but it's too big or whatever. You're fundamentally, through all this other kinds of stuff, you're selling yourself. And that's the biggest thing out of all of this. Relationships about selling yourself, not about your business. And I think that you got to remember that. So even if you fall flat in your pitch, walk out there with a smile, thank you very much. Ask people, what can I do better? What was good about my presentation? What was crap about it? Let me do this thing better for you next time.
Okay.
Can I add to that quickly?
Yeah.
I think don't be afraid to look for feedback. A lot of people go, stuff that didn't understand what was going on. Actually leave the door open with some action points so that you can reach out and go, what didn't you like about what I'm saying? And you've all had salespeople reach out to you. How many times has a salesperson said, help me, point me in the right direction? I always look at it as the restaurateur who made a mess and is able to recover from that mess. Imagine if you had that opportunity the whole time. How much do you love that restaurant that recovered? Don't be afraid to look for feedback. And I wouldn't do it in the same meeting, but follow up at a later stage. It's a perfectly normal thing to do.